So, welcome back to Elevate with Liana and Marisha, the space where we rise together by hearing the stories that stir us to grow, shift, and lead with soul.
Today, we're honored to welcome a leader whose work touches every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. Dr. Bapon Fakhruddin is a global expert in water and climate change, climate resilience, with over 22 years of experience across 40 countries, and a dear colleague of mine in my water policy work. He currently leads the Water Resources Portfolio at the Green Climate Fund, the world's largest dedicated fund for climate action.
From early warning systems that have saved millions of lives from floods, cyclones, and tsunamis, to guiding some of the world's most ambitious climate resilience investments, Dr. Bapon's mission is very clear: helping humanity not just survive, but thrive in a changing climate.
And today we'll explore both the sweeping water climate and climate change challenges shaping our future and what each one of us can do to make a difference. So Bapon, welcome to Elevate.
Thank you so much, Liana and Marisha, to inviting me. It's been a pleasure and honor. Thank you.
All right, so let's start at the global level, Bapon. You've had a front row seat now for quite a while to how climate change is reshaping our relationship with water. So from your vantage point at the Green Climate Fund, what do you see as the most urgent water and climate risks that the world faces today? In a short little snippet, please.
You ask a big question, actually. But to write it in or saying in a very short term, I mean, the ambition to coming to the fund is actually to showing a greater impact. So if you look at last of my career, I mean, I'm doing the same thing what I was doing right now. So basically, designing project, implement project, and especially supporting to our most vulnerable communities who really need help due to the climate change, disaster risk reduction. The reason for coming to the fund is actually how can actually create a shorter time, bigger impact, because as a human being, you have a fixed lifespan and you like to show your optimum impact that you can actually create to supporting to this society. And I think that was the major passion for me actually to come into the fund, to see how can actually in a shorter time can actually create something innovative, transformative, and as well as paradigm shift to helping to our most vulnerable people.
Oh, beautiful. And you've been so instrumental in setting up multi-hazard early warning systems that have protected lives across Asia, Africa, and beyond. Could you share a story, Bapon, where you saw the direct human impact of these systems and what it taught you about resilience?
Well, I mean, it has actually quite memory from the childhood where we actually come from our origin, right? So I born and brought up in Bangladesh. And you maybe know that Bangladesh, which is actually quite a highly disaster-prone country, and flooding is like one in every year or one in 2 years. Here you get a catastrophic flooding as well as cyclone. And while you see actually your people are actually losing their life and getting affected, it actually impacts you as a personally that you like to really do something for your own people. And I think that's where it's coming from, to work with the community, designing some need-based solution so that we actually try to transform from top-down to bottom-up approach. And I think some of those things I try to able to reflect in my work over the last, say, 20 years. To designing more than, I think, 40 countries' early warning system. I think many of the countries using their operational forecasting systems, which I was actually quite partly engaged to design and implement and actually support. And I think that was the biggest milestone I can see actually, especially on the 2004 tsunami, 2010 cyclone, 2008 cyclone. Even if you look at the Fiji, when 2015, almost 74 people actually killed in a cyclone, and a small island like Fiji which is actually 4% of the GDP. And now with the new early warning systems for cyclone, the casualty is actually 1 or 2. That's even higher, but that's not due to just for the disaster. It may be either they fall down, they actually drowning, or other reason actually that happen. And same for Bangladesh and India.
Yeah. And I know, of course, the United Nations Secretary General has called for implementation of these early warning systems for populations that are most at risk and vulnerable, right, Bapon?
Yep. Yeah, obviously, I mean, the SG actually come up with the vision that by 2027, we need to be set up an early warning for all, so which is a biggest ambition. And as a fund, as you maybe saw, actually with our USP2, we also created a commitment that we'll be actually supporting more than 50 to 60 countries early warning systems, either enhancement or development. And I think we almost reach our milestone within the 2 years.
Wow.
And as you've demonstrated, Bapon, that's really the linchpin of what saves lives is those early warning systems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also if you look at on the early warning systems, we were actually trying to do a lot of ad hoc basis, and then it's like every country doing through project by project. Like one project goes 1 year, and then after the project is diminish everything, and then you actually try to do new way of doing things. And I think when you have a resource scarce on globally, it's actually very fancy to actually have 5 projects in one country. So we cannot actually think in that way. And that's the reason actually we brought up this first global early warning, multi-hazard early warning project, bringing all the 4 pillars together to work in one single project, how we can actually support a multi-country, but in a more transformative as well as creating a scalable opportunity. $107 million project actually we launched last year to setting up this early warning system for all.
Wow, very, very impressive.
So sometimes also, Bapon, when we talk about climate change, people can feel paralyzed, right? It seems too big, too technical, too far away from our daily lives. But of course, we all believe that individuals and communities have real power to act, don't we? So what are some of the most practical steps ordinary people, whoever's listening out there, can take to contribute to water and climate resilience? Bapon, your quick tips here.
I think when you're talking about water and climate change, it's a little bit challenging for understanding point of view, because when you're talking water, you're actually sitting a small farmer in a small watershed. And when you're talking about climate change, it's actually a global phenomena, right? So as a farmer, you need to know what is happening to my own land or my in watershed. Am I actually getting more water, less water, no water? And then in a climate change, you're talking about, okay, what is happening into a RCP 8.5, RCP 4.5 scenario, global or regional or national situation. And that doesn't help individually as a person like me, who actually wants to really know, is my house is going to be flooded, so I actually take some precautionary measures. And bringing these two together is actually requires some science and as well as data-driven analytics. So it is like we call like a modeling. It could be 1D modeling, it could be 2D modeling. It depends on what kind of sophistication and expertise you have. But if you go to a country, either in a small or even a developed countries, often actually we don't have those kind of data-driven analytics are available to give them an understanding to our poorest of the poor people that, hey, 50 millimeter rainfall increase, what does it mean to me? Or what does it mean to you at that level? And generating that kind of information requires some effort. And I think we have a lot of capacity gaps in that particular space. So unless actually we build those capacity through education as well as technical know-how, it will be very difficult to interpret that kind of challenges. And then once you don't know your risk, you are actually quite uncertain what kind of actually mitigation measures you will be putting together. So there are very fundamental flaws overall situational or systemic approach. Even if you just look at on the other way, we have all the country developed their NAP, National Adaptation Plan, but they actually jumped to the NAP before understanding the risk. So if you don't know your risk, what kind of adaptation you're gonna talking about? So it need to have a science and data-driven analytics so that actually it could feed to the need of the people, and then you can actually customize and support those kind of solution technologies as well as adaptation for community resilience.
Well, what I can really understand is that, like in every area in life, it is a contribution. There's different roles, and if everyone is doing their part, we can raise that awareness, and people can bring in the data, and there's people educating and just raising that awareness about water. Obviously, I've been privileged to be friends with Marisha, and we've spoken about water in other opportunities, and we're going, okay, what's that one tip that I can bring into my home that I am respecting more, not only my well-being, but the one of the planet, and therefore my community and the world. And if everyone takes care of their little space, well, then we can have that impact. But we're so grateful that there are people like you behind there looking into the numbers and the bigger view for us. So, Bapon, if we were to ask you, if you were to fast forward, let's say 20 years ahead, what would you like the world to look like?
So like now, now I become now a Kiwi, a New Zealander, right? So when you look at New Zealand aspect, we have a very strong indigenous community called Māori community. And in the Māori world, we say everything is interconnected, right? Your ocean, your atmosphere, your land, everything is connected. And similarly, as we just say that actually, you cannot think about ad hoc or, silos. Still, our water is quite silos, even though we say there is no boundary to the water, right? We mix with everything. So I think there is a quite important, if you look at on the moving forward, collectiveness to work together, but also we actually ensure our own bit, our own responsibility. We are not saying that we are doing less, we are not doing right. We all are doing our best bit based on our capacity, but then we have a interlinkage, interoperability issue among us. And if you're able to interoperable, it's actually quite coherent, and you create a cohesive society. And you create the optimum or efficient use of your time, resource, as well as energy. Once you're able to set that puzzle, it's like, playing with the puzzle. You want to make a small car, we're using a puzzle. If you know what are the puzzles you need to put together, you can create a nice car. If you don't know, it would be a car, but it's a very different shape. And I think we are actually playing with that kind of things, that we have a data, we have information, we have a knowledge, we know how, but then we are not actually playing in a synchronized way so that actually we could create a more systematic framework where you can actually do like a plug and play. So if I'm not there, I just put the same another vehicle on there so that actually it can run properly. And I think that's what we need to be fixing. And if we can fix it, I think things would be run very smoothly.
I love it. I love the way you put it in that vision of the Maori interconnectedness of the world. I know Liana also feels the same living on in the bush here in Australia. So thank you for that, Bapon. And then just to get to know you, the person behind all of this much better. What is your proudest accomplishment, Bapon, in the life you've had such an incredible life? So what would you say, whether it's personal or professional, just what is your biggest accomplishment in life, do you think, so far?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a father of 2 kids, and my kids are almost grown up. One is 18, one is 17. So I think that's the biggest achievement for us, me and my wife. But then I maybe spend most of my time actually looking at the career, and my wife actually spent a lot of time taking care of children. So in one way, okay, I'm a very successful man, and then maybe she a little bit actually sacrificed on the other side. But also on the other way, if you just try to look at, I also actually miss a lot of my time with my children because of my passion to this community.
Beautiful. Always very personal. Okay, so a few quick questions, just to wrap it up. You can answer with just one word or a very short sentence. The first thing that comes to your mind. The biggest myth about climate change you wish people would stop believing.
That's quite good questions. I think look at the current action, because you just need to see what is happening around you. If you just start thinking 100 years, 50 years, you forget everything. Just try to look at present, live with present. And if you're able to live with your present, and if you know that what are the solution, you know what is coming.
Beautiful.
Oh, that is really spectacular. All right. One innovation in water or climate that excites you most right now, Bapon?
I'm actually working a very challenging task right now, if I just say that. I mean, one of the biggest challenge in the water space, I mean, Marisha, you work on the water space quite long, maybe more than me. I mean, we are hearing last 20 years and my whole career that private sector need to come and play a critical role. This is every single conference, every single workshop, every single panel you go, people talking about these things, but then we are not actually telling how. If you don't tell how, then what you wanna bring? And so I'm actually trying to find that how, because when you work in this kind of innovative or as well as very catalytic fund with a lot of flexibility, with high risk appetite and flexible instrument, you can actually de-risk the market quite easily. And if you're able to understand the risk that private sector is actually facing, that they are actually hesitant to invest their money into the water, whereas they're not hesitant to spending their money in energy, we need to find out actually what are the reasons there. And if those reasons actually could be de-risking with any instrument, any ecosystems or any kind of legislation that could be bring together. And if we can actually create that space, I think that would be a very innovative and as well as actually creating a greater impact to our water community to see how we actually reduce those kind of impact and more climate resilience.
We are with you, Bapon. We're totally behind and supporting you in this. Okay, a book or a podcast or a quote that has inspired you the most?
There are so many. I read so many things on a day-to-day basis, and I think everything inspires me, and any philosophical thought. So, what to say at this moment? It doesn't come in anything in my mind, but then
your favorite book, Bapon? What's your favorite book?
I like Sidney Sheldon books. A lot of thriller books. I enjoy.
All right.
That's interesting. One object in your home that tells your story?
I have a lot of magnets on my fridges. I have a lot of poster on or artwork on my living room, and those reflects who I am, where I belongs, and maybe some of my thinking thought process.
So cool. And if you could leave Bapon our listeners with just one call to action, just one thing they could do today, what would it be?
I would say, I mean, what we are talking about water and climate change, and the water problem is actually due to climate change. And if you really want to solve the climate change risk or climate action, you need to actually look at the water first. And as I said, that water doesn't have a boundary, so you need to be bringing water forefront rather than actually back end, because this is a front engine you need to be drive, so that it ensure your water for life, water for security, water for food, water for living, and as well as it could create your economy in a more circular way. And if you're able to do that, I think, or if you're able to think in that process, I think that's the biggest thing I like to see my listener, if they are actually passionate on water.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Bapon. As you know, you and I have same views and very similar experiences in this field. And so that voice and that knowledge that you bring today is just so precious. So thank you. And you've reminded us, of course, that water is not just a resource. It's really the connector of life, right? It's what supports us all and connects us in so many ways, and how we manage it, and how we, especially now with climate change impacts that are felt mostly through the water cycles, whether it's floods, droughts, cyclones, hurricanes. So if we manage it, then that, and how we manage it, how we decide to manage it, and how we decide to come together, as you said, with the private sector and governments and different, that is really what will define the future of humanity for us, right?
Absolutely.
We can't but thank you, Bapon, for coming in and sharing your knowledge, your heart, and your mission in life, and to everyone also listening. Climate change isn't just something happening out there. This is what came through very clearly today. It's here. It's something that we've all got a part in it. So it's not hopeless. We can, each of one can do a little part of building this resilience, whether it's in our homes, in our communities, and how we push for smarter policies and investments. Thank you so much for bringing that message so loud and clear today.
Thank you so much for inviting, Lina.
Thank you, Bapon. And if today's episode moved you out there, start a conversation, talk about this, and remember, change doesn't only come from the top, it also begins with each one of us.
Exactly. And until next time, lead with soul, live with intention, and always stay elevated.
Thank you. Thank you so much.